truly recognize who to worship. You won't truly recognize who to obey. You won't truly recognize that who is the person who all my thanks and all my gratitude should be towards. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ وَلَإِن كَفَرْتُمْ إِنَّ عَذَابِي لَشَدِيدٌ. I usually begin every one of my speeches with this ayah because it's very profound. Oftentimes we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us wealth, for giving us cars, for giving us houses, for giving us this and that. But how many of us have thanked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us iman? How many of us have woken up at salat at the time of tahajjud and prayed 2 rakat salat al-shukr? That Ya Allah, in a country filled with kufr, in a country filled with nifaq, and with Muslims who are leaving deen, Allah protect us all. That Ya Allah, you still have chosen us to be upon the path of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And this is something that we truly have to inculcate within our life and truly do shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, truly show our gratitude towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala daily, nightly, in every instance we get, so that He subhanahu wa ta'ala can increase us in this and protect us and protect this blessing that He has given us, especially in these challenging times when you see that a person wakes up as a believer and he goes to sleep as a disbeliever, and he goes to sleep as a believer and he wakes up as a disbeliever. And this is not just, a metaphor, something that was said in the past. Rather, we see this today. You ask any imam, ask any mufti who's leading a community, ask him how many cases of irtidad, apostasy he deals with daily, weekly, and the numbers will, I feel shy for you to speak about this in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it is very saddening. Ex-Muslims of America, they release their stats, and I don't even want to mention it, but if you go check, subhanAllah, you think that, the only thing you can say is, alhamdulillah, Allah still chose us to be Muslim. Because all of us were potentially only one step away from kufr. And it was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who chose us, that while we're still in this country filled with kufr and nifaq and all these other hypocrisies, that He subhanahu wa ta'ala chose us to be Muslims. After briefly mentioning who He subhanahu wa ta'ala is, and obviously mentioning that I was not able to this talk was not necessarily mentioned to just speak about who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, but we briefly mentioned some points. Then we also mentioned we have to mention who Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is. And this is what I'll spend majority of today on. And inshallah, don't worry, we'll cover all Ashara Mubashara. Towards the end, I'll probably cover 2 Sahaba in one day. As the first Khulafa Rashidun, they take some more time, and I felt shy. You have to start the story of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu without mentioning who Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was. Because the fadila of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu is known to the fadila of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So then I have to mention who Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is, and the importance of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So I'll mention some brief points towards the end, maybe regarding the name of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, and some brief remarks, and inshallah tomorrow we'll go into a deep dive. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, subhanallah, what can we say? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, مَن يُطِعِ الرَّسُولَ فَقَدْ أَطَاعَ اللَّهِ, that he who obeys the messenger has obeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him such a high status that in obeying Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, we obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرَ وَذَكَرَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. That verily for you in Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the best of example. Qudwatun hasana. Uswa is qudwa in Arabic. Qudwa is what? Someone who you can follow and take as a role model. لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرَ. So who is Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam the best of role models for? For the person who desires to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has firm belief in meeting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and knows the day of judgment will come. وَذَكَرَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. And he remembered Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in abundance. In order to truly benefit from the life of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and understand who Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is. And just one point I want to mention here, that any time all of us hear the name of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the masjid should erupt in salutations upon him. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned in the hadith, ما في معنى الحديث البخيل الذي ذكرت عنده ولم يصلي عليه. That the stingy person is the one who my name is mentioned in his present and he doesn't send salah upon me. So anytime we hear the name of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, all of us should send salat, alayhi salatu wa tamu taslim, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Back to the point, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ لِمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو اللَّهَ وَالْيَوْمَ الْآخِرَ وَذَكَرَ اللَّهَ كَثِيرًا. That those people who truly want to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and who truly believe in the day of judgment, and who truly believe that they will stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then they will understand that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, for them is the example. for this ummah. We're the greatest of ummah. We're the greatest of nations. Why? Merely and only through the fadilah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And this is another thing we need to do shukr for. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have chosen us to be from the nation of Nuh alayhi salam. Could have chosen us to be from the nation of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Could have chosen us to be from the nation of Lut alayhi salam. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored us to be from the nation of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And you also honored us in a way, it's a blessing to live in these times. Because in these times of fitan, holding on to the deen of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the reward is multiplied. And inshallah on the day of judgment, Allah will raise us with the shuhada, the siddiqeen, and the sulaha. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us His tawfiq, He gives us the success and ability to hold on to the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. As the poet says regarding Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Hassan bin Thabit radiallahu anhu, وأحسن منك لم تر قط عيني وأجمل منك لم تلد النساء خلقت مبرأ من كل عيب كأنك قد خلقت كما تشاء وأحسن منك لم تر قط عيني. The more beautiful and more excellent than you, my eyes have never seen such a person. عليه الصلاة وتم التسليم. وأجمل منك لم تلد النساء. And more beautiful than you, no woman has given birth to. خلقت مبرأ من كل عيب. You were created in such a manner that you were free from all fault. خلقت مبرأ من كل عيب كأنك قد خلقت كما تشاء. It is as though you were created as you have wished. This is who Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is. The poets go on, and I love poetry. That's one of my passions, Arabic poetry. However, time is short, and I can't mention as much as I want. So we'll suffice with this one small poem that's very famous regarding Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, بالبينات والزبر وأنزلنا إليك الذكر لتبين للناس ما نزل إليهم ولعلهم يتفكرون. As was mentioned in one of the course objectives and learning objectives of this course, as we will also respond to some modern objectives, some modern objections, some modern trials and tribulations that people have fallen into, and we'll tie it all into what I'm speaking. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, أنزلنا إليك الذكر, al-Quran, that we have revealed to you this Quran. لتبين للناس, so that you can explain to the people, so that you can clarify to the people ما نزل إليهم, that which has been revealed to them. ولعلهم يتفكرون أي يتعظون, and so that they may take heed and understand. So a very important point nowadays, you have some people, they call themselves Quranists, they're Qurani, Ahlul Quran, and in reality this is Talbisu Iblis, this is the deception of Shaitan. What these people do is they reject the hadith of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And this is a grave sin, and rejecting all hadith in totality could lead a person to kufr. And you think, how would such a person do this? And I don't want to take names, but there are many of these people online, they have famous YouTube channels, they're in the thousands of viewers, and they're spreading fasad in this ummah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us and our children from such people. Rejection of the hadith of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Rejection of the hadith of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the way that modernism, feminism, liberalism, atheism, all the isms except for Islam will enter your house. If you do not have the hadith of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, you will not know how to pray, you will not know how to do adhan, you will not know what breaks the prayer, what are the fara'id, the wajibat, the mu'akkadat, mustahabbat, ila akhirihi. You won't know any of these things without the hadith of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And through the Quran, these people who claim they follow the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly mentions, وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ. How else is Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? The nas, not just the Sahaba ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim ajma'in. It is for everyone to follow after. How else is Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam going to explain to us the Quran if it is not through his hadith, which the muhaddithun have meticulously protected and preserved in the books of hadith? And if I had to enter into the science of mustalah al-hadith and ulum al-hadith, you can spend years. It's the khususat. You can study, and you still will not finish. And this is not the time and place for it. If anyone who has doubt on the veracity of the hadith, then they can come to me afterwards, inshallah, and we can discuss this in more detail. But simply through the Quran, I'm already showing you. This Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran is already showing you. And He's already forewarning you against the people who will come later on, and they will say that kafana the Quran is sufficient for us. This is a statement of shaitan. This is not a statement of Ahlul Haq and people who call themselves Quranists, Ahlul Quran. Now, just as a side point, I'm going to mention what is the Quran. وَكِتَابُ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى الْمُنَزَّلُ عَلَى نَبِيِّنَا مُحَمَّدٍ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ الْمَنْقُولُ عَنْهُ إِلَى يَوْمِنَا هَذَا مُتَوَاتِرًا بِلَا شُبْهَةٍ الْمَكْتُوبُ فِي الْمَصَاحِفِ. It is the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that was revealed upon Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is another ta'aleem of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is why Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is mu'azzam. Because the Quran was revealed on him, the best of books, the book that is preserved till today. You see all these Hufaz, they read meticulously. I've seen and I know people personally who have read the entire Quran in one sitting, 0 mistakes. At best, maybe one mistake, maybe they forgot something here and there. And this in of itself should be enough to show a person that this Quran is preserved. That you have kids as young as 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, spend 1 year, 2 years memorizing the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is one of the biggest blessings and gifts a person can give to his child. Sometimes a person will think, what do you do with all these children? You're wasting their time. You're putting them in school. Instead of putting them in school, instead of attending high school, they're going to be back 1, 2 years when they come to high school. Instead of putting them in middle school, these young kids, you're wasting their time. You know, they're going to fall behind, and you know, the SAT and whatnot. This is the biggest blessing, among the biggest blessings a person can give to his child. That he makes him the hafiz of the Quran, but not only makes him a hafiz of the Quran, it's very important. I mentioned this because nowadays you see many hufaz of the Quran. You see hufaz, Allah protect us, maybe not here we'll see as much, but you see in Chicago, we have hundreds of hufaz of the Quran. You won't find a place to read the Tarawih in Chicago. But you'll also see many hufaz of the Quran who are leaving Islam. You'll see many hufaz of the Quran who don't practice deen. The hayba, the waqar, the position, the awe that was given to a hafiz today is gone away. It is because the parents who are making the children hufaz don't truly understand deen themselves. And all they want is the child to become a hafiz so they can tell people, my child became a hafiz. Mahabba al-Quran, not there. How does the child become a hafiz? Because the parent told the teacher, beat him and give me the bones and just make him a hafiz. How can a person love the Quran? I know a person who, subhanAllah, he told me, he said he was beaten so badly when memorizing the Quran that when he used to hear the Quran, it would like create a negative feeling within himself. He couldn't bear hearing it. Until eventually he heard a very beautiful verse beside him, and he obviously left cities and whatnot. Then slowly, subhanAllah, he came back to deen and got reconnected to Islam. But this is my point, that it's not just making your children hafaz of Quran. It is inculcating in them the love of Quran. Because if they don't have the love of Quran, mere memorizing the Quran will not suffice them. If a person, you see, you know, how many people they come, they drop their children off at, high school in the morning. And then ask them, did your dad pray Fajr? No. Did you pray Fajr? No. What was the point of coming to memorize Fajr? You're not praying what is from, and you're coming to do what is not from. What's the benefit? There is benefit in memorizing the Quran, that's not what I'm saying. But my point is, you have to understand the deen as a whole. The issue is nowadays people just like to take one part of deen and leave the rest of deen. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu udkhulu fi silmi kaffa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that enter into this religion wholly. Enter this religion completely. Islam is our identity. Islam is the way of our life. Without Islam, me and you are nothing. We have no honor, and we have no purpose, and we have no goal. So we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us the basic blessing of saying the shahada la ilaha illallah. But beyond this, we have to enter into this deen more and more, and inculcate within our lives the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. That he sallallahu alayhi wa sallam does not speak from his desires. Rather, it is revelation that is revealed to him. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in another ayah, وَمَا آتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. That whatever the prophet, the messenger, and the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam comes to you with, then take it. Take it wholeheartedly. Don't apply your aql, don't apply what I feel, what I think. No, whatever Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam came to you with, take it. And this is the sifah of the Sahaba ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim ajma'in. When the ayah of Khamr came down, the streets of Medina were pouring with wine. There was no, well, let me take one last sip, let me take another sip, let me just feed it. What's the point? Sometimes people have haram, they're like, haram food at home, you tell them, oh brother, it's haram. Oh, I don't want it to go to waste, let me just eat it. When the ayah of Khamr came down, the streets of Medina were flowing. These were people who were, in a sense, some of them were addicted in a sense to wine. But when Allah's decree came down, and then when the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said something, it was done deal. There was nothing, what I feel, what I think, what he will say, what she will say. But rather, whatever Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam decreed for us, that suffices us. Sam'an wa ta'an ya Rasulullah. And then it's important to mention, we'll hear sunnah. What is sunnah? Lughatan, linguistically, sunnah means at-tariqa. It is a way of life. Right? That's what it means linguistically. At-tariqa, a path, a way, And then, istilahi is the terminological definition. ما ثبت عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. There's many definitions. You check Mustalah, if you check books of Ulum al-Hadith, they'll give you definition. You check books of Usul al-Fiqh, they'll give you different definition. But again, like I said, for time, I'll suffice with this. ما ثبت عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قولا أو فعلا أو تقريرا. That which has been established from Nabi صلى الله عليه وسلم either through his words, statements, فعلا, actions, or تقريرا. That something happened in front of Nabi صلى الله عليه وسلم and he didn't rebuke it. Essentially, it's like silent approval. They happened in his presence and he didn't say anything against it. Rather, through his silence, he approved it. This is very important because we live in a time where people are attacking the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There are two types of sunnah. I'll briefly mention this. The sunnah can get more complicated, but first, sunnah zahida, sunnah muakkada, sunnah huda or sunnah muakkada. That there are those sunnahs that are emphasized and there are sunnahs that are not as emphasized. And it is important because people nowadays, they're trying to strip the identity of Muslims by taking away the sunnah and zawaid. For a believer, he doesn't differentiate between sunnah muakkada and sunnah zaida. Every sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam he is going to do. And this is what Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma and Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma and all the Sahaba, they had such love and reverence for Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It is mentioned about Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma regarding Hajj, how he was so meticulous to follow the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. If Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam stopped in X spot, I'm going to stop at X spot. He's not applying Abdullah, why did he stop, what day of time, or what time was it in the day, I'm tired, this, that. No. Just the mere fact that my Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam stopped somewhere, I'm going to stop somewhere. Just the mere fact that my Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam did something, I'm going to do something. And that is why the Sahaba were who they were. Today we leave the sunnah because we say, it's just sunnah, it's not from. The Sahaba ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim ajma'in, they did not leave the sunnah just because it was. They followed the sunnah for the mere fact it was sunnah. And today we leave the sunnah because we say it is sunnah. May Allah forgive us and guide us all. And that's why it is very important that, back to the main point where I was saying that people are trying to strip us of our Islamic identity. And you will have no identity without the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. People will say that, don't wear the kufi, don't wear X clothing, don't wear the turban, don't do this, don't do that. Why? Because this is all just the oath. This is talbisu iblis, this is the deception of shaitan. Many things which Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam did at this time, which were also just a part of the norm. Horse riding, swimming, eating dates, these were all the food of the people. These are also the sports which other people participated in. But people don't say, don't horse ride. People say, you won't hear people say, don't wrestle. You won't hear people say, don't eat dates. Why? Because there's no harm in it. They don't feel an inferiority complex. But when it comes to wearing the kufi, when it comes to wearing the turban, when it comes to practicing the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam outside, then you'll hear people saying, this is actually not the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And rather, this fact stems for many people from the fact that they suffer from an inferiority complex. There's nothing more greater, there's nothing more honorable, there's nothing that a person can be blessed with better than following the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Man tashabbaha biqawmin fahuwa minhum. Whoever resembles a nation, then he'll be from amongst them. If you want to be from amongst Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam on the day of judgment, then the simple solution is follow the sunnah alayhi salatu wa atamu taslim. You want to follow the sunnah of the kuffar, you want to follow the way of the munafiqeen, you want to follow the way of those Ustadh and the people who have left the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and then on the same tongue and same hand you want to say, that I'm a devout follower of Islam, this does not work. Rather, if you want to be a true follower of Islam, then you have to follow Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We have to inculcate within our children the true identity of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, يا أيها الذين آمنوا أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم فإن تنازعتم في شيء فردوه إلى الله والرسول إن كنتم تؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر ذلك خير وأحسن تأويلا. All you who believe, all you have believed, أطيعوا الله, obey Allah, وأطيعوا الرسول. Right after obeying Allah, you obey His Messenger. وأولي الأمر منكم, and those who, the leaders, and this is a different topic. I'm not going to enter into the topic of ulat al-umur and stuff because it's a very controversial topic, but if there's an established Khalifa who fulfilled all the conditions of what it means to be a Khalifa, then yes, according to most, actually it's not according to most, it is upon the believers to obey such a ruler. Now, the reason I'm not going to mention this is because nowadays it's become very controversial, and this is not, if I start on this topic, we'll go for 30 minutes. But nonetheless, you can understand briefly, when people say, in ulat al-umur and stuff, there are certain conditions for a person, there are conditions to be met. So yes, if a person is truly the Islamic Khalifa, like Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, Umar radiallahu anhu, Uthman radiallahu anhu, Ali radiallahu anhu, Umar bin Abdul Aziz, and we have other Khilafas in the past. If if a person is properly established as the ruler, then you must obey them. And what is incumbent upon the ruler? That he does tahkim bi-kitabillah wa bi-sunnati Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So if a ruler is ruling against the book of Allah, and the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, then a person is not obliged to disobey Allah and His Rasul. لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الله عز وجل. This is a base principle you can apply anywhere in your life. People ask me all the time, oh, my parents want me to do this, that. Obey everyone and respect everyone, so as long as you're not disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you're not disobeying His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. There's no greater allegiance, there's no greater connection, there's no greater worship than your worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there's no greater allegiance, and there's no greater treaty than us and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's connection. That's why even if a person's parents, which is among the most sacred relationship, and it's among the worst sins to disobey a person's parents and to harm your parents. This is among the most severe sins in Islam. It comes right after Ishraq billah. وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِاللَّهِ شَيْئًا وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. That you have to not just obey your parents, but you have to do ihsan towards your parents. وَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُوفْ. Mere just, come on. These type of statements, this can also be sinful, because this is showing disrespect towards your parents. And this is, now if I also enter this will be another tangent, but briefly I'm going to mention different things, and if I go into tangents then the time will never end, but briefly mentioning this is something that is gone in our generation. May Allah give me tawfiq first. If you see the mashayikh, alhamdulillah, Allah has given me tawfiq to meet many ulama. Among the most successful ulama I've seen, one thing that stood out to me is their respect towards their parents. They have thousands of students. They say do this, it will happen. They say do that, it will happen. But when it comes to respecting their parents, they treat their parents with the utmost respect. If their mom calls them, they will be there. If their dad says something, it's done. They go home in the night and they massage their parents' feet. They go home in the night and they serve their parents. They go home in the night, they'll cook food for their parents. After spending the whole day in tadris, and tadarrus, and ta'aleem, and ta'allum, and imama, and qira'at al-Quran and all this, at the end of the day, where do they go? They go and respect their parents. And that's why for whoever has their parents alive, take advantage of this. Because wallahi, when your parents die, and may Allah elongate the lives of all our parents who are alive, and those who have passed away, they can truly tell you this. But once this door is closed, it will never open, and the feeling of regret you will feel. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from feeling this feeling of regret by allowing us to take the opportunity that is at hand and truly respect our parents. Nonetheless, back to the ayah, this is another perfect dalil against those people who reject the hadith. أي اختلفتم في شيء فردوه إلى الله والرسول. That if you have any difference, you have any اختلاف amongst yourselves in any matter, فردوه إلى الله أي إلى كتاب الله. Then return the matter. Then look where do you find the answer? In the book of Allah. And if it's not in the book of Allah, it will be in the Sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وَالرَّسُولِ إِن كُنتُمْ تُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. If you truly believe in Allah in the day of judgment, then you will do this. If me and you truly believe in Allah in the day of judgment, then all our affairs, all our relationships will be according to the book of Allah and the Sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. When you depart from the book of Allah and when you depart from the Sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, then rest assured, guarantee yourself anything but success. Because there cannot be success for anything in this world except in that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained. Anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained, either through the kitab of Allah or through the Sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, we must believe that there is hikmah, there is wisdom in this. People all the time like to talk about wisdom. What is wisdom? They'll straight up disobey Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and they'll do, oh, this is wisdom. I'm so wise. There's no one more wiser than the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Hikmah in Arabic is mentioned as al-hikmah وَضْعُ شَيْءٍ فِي مَحَلِّهِ, placing something in the right place. And dhulm is وَضْعُ شَيْءٍ فِي غَيْرِ مَحَلِّهِ, placing something in a place where it does not belong. In your life, where does it belong? It belongs in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ. If me and you have any difference, or not, this ayah can apply at many levels, I'm applying this from a different perspective. But also if me and you have any issue in our life, if me and you have any differences, any difficulties, the first place we should look is the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has mentioned in the hadith, تَرَكْتُ فِيكُمْ أَمْرَيْنِ لَنْ تَضِلُّوا مَا تَمَسَّكْتُمْ بِهِمَا كِتَابَ اللَّهِ وَسُنَّةَ رَسُولِهِ صلى الله عليه وسلم. This hadith is mentioned in Muqta and in other narrations is mentioned with some differences in wording. But تَرَكْتُ فِيكُمْ أَمْرَيْنِ, I have left with you two matters. تَرَكْتُ فِيكُمْ أَمْرَيْنِ, two things.
لن تضلوا, you will never go misguided. ما تمسكتم بهما, as long as you hold on to both of them. كتاب الله, the book of Allah, وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Now after we understand who the Sahaba Ridwan, who Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, then we can understand how the Sahaba Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim ajma'in gained the status. Because me and you, had we to worship our whole life, had we to spend our whole life in worship, we would never equal the status of the lowest Sahabi alayhi Ridwanullahi ta'ala. Me and you, if we never disobeyed, which is obviously all of us are going to be making some mistake in our life. But I'm just saying hypothetically, if me and you lived an amazing life, and we're so pious, and we memorize Bukhari, and we memorize Muslim, and you memorize the Quran, and you memorize the Sab'a Qira'at, and you're Shaykh al-Mashayikh, Mufti al-Balad, you are not equal to the lowest Sahabi alayhi ridwanullah. And this is something we have to understand, that me and you, no matter how much we try, we will never obtain the status of a Sahaba. And why? There's many reasons for this. What makes a Sahaba a Sahaba? And I'll mention a little bit the actual definition later, but it's because of Suhbah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The fact that they lived at the time of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, وَالسَّابِقُونَ الْأَوَّلُونَ مِنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ وَالْأَنصَارِ وَالَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوهُم بِإِحْسَانٍ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ وَرَضُوا عَنْهُ وَأَعَدَّ لَهُمْ جَنَّاتٍ تَجْرِي تَحْتَهَا الْأَنْهَارُ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا أَبَدًا ذَلِكَ الْفَوْزُ الْعَظِيمُ. وَالسَّابِقُونَ الْأَوَّلُونَ. The first and foremost, and many of the Mufassirun, there's many opinions regarding who this refers to. Some people say that this refers to those who participated in Badr. Some people say this refers to those who were in Bi'at al-Ridwan. Others mention different aqwal. من المهاجرين والأنصار, from those who migrated from Mecca, and the Ansar, the supporters of the Muhajirun and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in Medina. وَالَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوهُم بِإِحْسَانٍ, and those who followed them with ihsan. رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ وَرَضُوا عَنْهُ. Allah is pleased with them, and they are pleased with Allah. Now I'll explain this ayah for you simply, regardless of which part refers to who. The Sahaba Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim ajma'in, Allah has made it clear. رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ وَرَضُوا عَنْهُ. Allah is pleased with them, and they are pleased with Allah. Allah could have just sufficed by saying, رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُ, Allah is pleased with them. But no, He's showing also why they are so great. Why have they obtained this status? Why are the Sahaba? وَرَضُوا عَنْهُ, they are pleased with Allah. This is a question me and you have to ask ourselves. Are we truly pleased with Allah? Are we truly pleased to be Allah's servants? Do we see ourselves as Allah's servants? Or do we see ourselves as ex-CEO, ex-businessman, ex-pilot, I'm the head of this company, I'm the head of this business? Is this who our identity is? Or do we see ourselves taking pride in the fact that we are the servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? As I mentioned, no matter how much me and you try, we will never reach the status of a Sahaba ridwanullahi ta'ala ajma'in. And the Sahaba, despite being much greater than us, they were pleased to be the servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were pleased for whatever Allah decreed. Radiyallahu anhum wa radu an. And this is the aqidah of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, is we do not insult, waliyadu billah, any of the Sahaba. We have this firm belief, we believe in this ayah. Radiyallahu anhum wa radu an. That Allah is pleased with them, and they are pleased with Allah. You see from among different groups, and I'm not going to necessarily go into a whole talk about Shi'as right now, but this is a hallmark of the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. We want to differentiate between a Sunni and a Shi'i. The way to know is how he approaches the Sahaba. Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah will never ever show disrespect towards any Sahaba, despite any difference that may have occurred between them. As-Sahaba kulluhum adul. That all of the Sahaba, they are trustworthy. Allah is pleased with them. What greater assurance can you get in life than Allah revealing in the Quran that I am pleased with you? Has Allah revealed about me and you that He's pleased with us? Allah has revealed in the Quran about them. رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنْهُمْ وَرَضُوا عَنْهُ. وَالَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوهُم بِإِحْسَانٍ. This can also apply to us. That if we follow the way of the Sahaba, and we follow the way of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, then Allah will also be pleased with me. What is the purpose of this life? What do you want from this world? You want money? Money will go. You want fame? Fame will go. You want children? You will die. Your children will die. Anything you want is depleting. أَلَا كُلُّ شَيْءٍ مَا خَلَى اللَّهُ بَاطِلُ أَلَا وَكُلُّ نَعِيمٍ لَا مَحَالَةَ زَائِلُ. Everything besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is batil, it's fani, it's gonna end, it's gonna deplete. أَلَا وَكُلُّ نَعِيمٍ لَا مَحَالَةَ زَائِلُ. Every blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything you have, all of us, we see one another. One day we'll be 6 foot under the grave. What is the thing that will help us if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with us? As I was mentioning in my talk at TMC after Fajr. فَمَنْ زُحْزِحَ عَنِ النَّارِ وَأُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةِ فَقَدْ فَازَ. You want a motto in life? You want to know what to work towards? You want to know what is success? فَمَنْ زُحْزِحَ عَنِ النَّارِ. The person who has been saved from the fire. وَأُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةِ. And he has been admitted into paradise. فَقَدْ فَازَ. Allah is saying this is the person who is successful. Not your degrees, not your education status, not what people think about you, whether you're qadi, whether you're alim, whether you're mufti, whether you're a big doctor, PhD, MD, whatever you want to say. The real successful person we will know is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to enter Jannah. We will know if we're truly successful when Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is pleased to meet us. And this is the motto in our life, and this is what we have to work towards. And everything in the dunya must revolve around this. If I'm doing X, if I'm gaining X education, if I'm going to X college, how does this lead me towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? It's not that it can't, but you just have to have the focus, you have to have the foresight, and like this, you will know to put everything in its right place. Then people will ask questions like, oh, you know, I have a long test, I have a long exam, is it permissible for me? Not too fast. Because you will realize that the one who gives you success is Allah. Take all the asbab you want, it's important to take the mean. For remember, Allah is musabbibul asbab. Any means you take, it will have no effect unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives it the effect. Moving on, another ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking regarding the Sahaba Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim ajma'in. Muhammadur Rasulullah. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the messenger of Allah. وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُمْ. Who's with those of them? The Sahaba Ridwanullahi ta'ala. أَشِدَّاءُ عَلَى الْكُفَّارِ. They're firm against the believers. رُحَمَاءُ بَيْنَهُمْ. Merciful amongst one another. If Muslims were like this today, majority of our issues would be solved. One of the sheikhs, he was asked, what is the sign of nifaq? Among Muslims. You see, Muslims, they love the disbelievers. They're happy that disbelievers' success. And when any success falls to the Muslims, you'll see them criticizing. You'll see them doing this, that. But when the Muslims are downfall, they're not helping. They're not doing anything. This does not mean that you transgress people's rights or you harm people unnecessarily. It's not what the ayah is saying. But they're firm against the disbelievers. You have confidence that I am a Muslim. My religion is the right religion. We do not believe in perennialism. We do not believe that all religions are correct religions. Inna deena inda Allah Islam. The only correct way of life, the only correct religion is Islam. Every other religion is false. The only prophet that me and you can follow and must believe in is Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Muhammadur Rasulullah. وَالَّذِينَ مَعَهُ أَشِدَّاءُ عَلَى الْكُفَّارِ رُحَمَاءُ بَيْنَهُم. They are merciful between the believers. What are those Muslims today? To be أَشِدَّاءُ عَلَى الْكُفَّارِ and to help the dying people in Gaza, to help those who are being slaughtered, hospitals being bombed, and there's not a single Muslim country who's ready to send an army. Everyone, why? Because رُحَمَاءُ بَيْنَ الْكُفَّارِ. They love the disbelievers. But there's no one among us. We have yet to see anybody arise among us who are going to say, I am merciful towards my Muslim brothers. And the reason for this is secularism and nationalism. People like to identify themselves. I'm Indian, I'm Pakistani, I'm Bangladeshi, he's Syrian, he's Jordanian. What's the difference between Jordan and Palestine? A border that the West grew up in. And they told you, you're Jordanian, you're Palestinian. And that's why the person in Jordan, the country of Jordan, does not care what's happening to the people in Palestine. The Pakistani does not care what's happening to the Indian. The Indian does not care what's happening to the Kashmiri. Why? I'm Indian, he's this. I'm Pakistani, he's this. We are believers. Our identity is Islam. And the moment Muslims realize their identity is Islam, and there's nothing more sacred, and there's nothing more greater than to feel proud of than Islam, then you'll see change within the Muslim Ummah. That's why Shaykh Awam, one of the greatest, among the greatest, if not greatest muhaddith alive today, who lived in Turkey, he mentioned that, I do not like when people say that, oh, I'm this, I'm that, identify themselves like this. So they say, I'm a Muslim. I'm a Muslim. This is who you are. You're not Indian, you're not Pakistani, this is just where your parents or grandparents were born from. Or even if you were born from. Okay, great, you're born there. But what is your way of life? Your way of life is Islam. What is your allegiance towards? Your allegiance is towards Islam. And that's why the Sahaba Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim ajma'in, they had the sittah. And that's why Allah gave them success. The Ansar were not looking, oh, these are people from Mecca, we don't care about what's happening to people in Mecca. No, they brought them in wholeheartedly. They gave half their wealth for them. Whatever you need, we're here for you. Foreigners, strangers in their country, and they're welcome them. Today you hear people who talk like, oh, I don't blame X country for not taking refugees because I wouldn't want to take refugees. They're your Muslim brothers. What honor, with what face will you show Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam on the day of judgment? When his ummah was slaughtered and me and you didn't do anything for them. Me and you did not donate for them. Me and you had this mentality that just because I'm donating
say, well, I'm Arab and he's not Arab, that I don't care about what's happening to him. All I care about is me and my people. We're the Ummah of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And this is what we must identify ourselves with. تَرَاهُمْ رُكَّعًا سُجَّدًا يَبْتَغُونَ فَضْلًا مِنَ اللَّهِ وَرِضْوَانًا. You see them doing ruku' sujood, seeking Allah's grace and His pleasure. سِيمَاهُمْ فِي وُجُوهِهِمْ مِنْ أَثَرِ السُّجُودِ ذَلِكَ مَثَلُهُمْ فِي التَّوْرَاةِ وَمَثَلُهُمْ فِي الْإِنْجِيلِ كَزَرْعٍ أَخْرَجَ شَطْأَهُ فَآزَرَهُ فَاسْتَغْلَظَ فَاسْتَوَىٰ عَلَى سُوقِهِ يُعْجِبُ الزُّرَّاعَ لِيَغِيظَ بِهِمُ الْكُفَّارَ وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ مِنْهُمْ مَغْفِرَةً وَأَجْرًا عَظِيمًا. Due to time being short, I won't be able to finish the rest of this ayah. Imam Malik rahimahullah mentioned this in Tafsir ibn Kathir. He says, وقال مالك رحمه الله بلغني أن النصارى كانوا إذا رأوا الصحابة الذين فتحوا الشام يقولون والله لهؤلاء خير من الحواريين فيما بلغنا وصدقوا في ذلك إن هذه الأمة معظمة في الكتب المتقدمة وأعظمها وأفضلها أصحاب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Imam Malik said they reached me that when the Muslims that conquered Sham, the Sahaba, and the Christians, they saw who the Sahaba were. They said, Wallahi, by Allah, لَهَؤُلَاءِ خَيْرٌ مِنَ الْحَوَارِيِّينَ فِيمَا بَلَغَ. That these people are better than the followers of Isa alayhi salam, that which have reached us. And then he says, definitely this is true, because the best of people are the Sahaba, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim ajma'in. What exactly is a Sahabi? Sahaba comes from the word Suhba. The fi'l is Sahiba. Sahiba al-shakhs means لَازَمَهُ وَأَخَذَهُ وَعَاشَرَهُ. Someone who you spent time with, someone who you made a close companion. And if you يطلق على الكثير والقليل, meaning even if you spent time with a person for a little bit, there's many اختلاف in all the, if you read up on the linguistics of this word, there's much اختلاف and different people, ulama have mentioned much different opinions, but I'm going to give you the crux of it right now, that suhbah does not necessarily always mean have to be, oh, you spent a lot of time. Even if you spend some time with them, you can also have attained suhbah. And that's why this is probably among the better definitions that have come across. والله أعلم, the many definitions out there, but من لقي النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في حياته مسلما ومات على الإسلام. This is the definition of Sahaba. من لقي النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. SubhanAllah, if you look, I'll explain this further. من لقي, he who has met Nabi صلى الله عليه وسلم في حياته while he was alive, ومات مسلما, and he was in the state of Islam. I.e., when he met Nabi صلى الله عليه وسلم, he was a Muslim. Either he became Muslim or he was already Muslim. He became Muslim. ومات على إسلام, and he died while he was Muslim. من لقي النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Why did they use the word لقي and not مرأة? Because some of the Sahaba were blind. That's what they use من لقي النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. في حياته, why? While he was alive. Because those who became Muslim afterwards would not be considered Sahaba, would be considered Tabi'in. Musliman, he has to be a Muslim at that time. ومات على إسلام, and then he also obviously, because if you die upon ihtidal, kufr, then you won't be considered a Muslim. SubhanAllah, there's so much mentioned. Some of the hadith regarding Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, لا تسبوا أصحابي, لا تسبوا أصحابي, فوالذي نفسي بيده لو أن أحدكم أنفق مثل أحد ذهبا ما أدرك مد أحدهم ولا نصيفه. That do not insult my messengers. Do not insult my messengers. To all those people, any sect who insults the messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Sahaba ridwanullahi ta'ala in the mind, you're directly going against the command of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. فوالذي نفسي بيده, by the one whose my soul is in his hand, لو أن أحدكم, had one of you to spend gold worth gold the size of the Mount of Uhud. Anyone who sees Uhud, you know how big it is. That much amount of gold, it would not equate to the mudda ahadihim. Mud is a specific type of measurement used at that time. But basically what this hadith is saying that no matter how much you spend, how much you do, their ibadah, their worship, they did, we will not. And that is something we have to realize and understand. And it's not supposed to be something that we become depressed over. But rather it should be a motivating factor that, you know what, even if I wasn't alive at the time of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allah still blessed me to be a part of this movement. And on the day of judgment, me and the Sahaba will both share one thing. And that is our Prophet Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So this is a thing of honor for us. In another hadith, in a part of the hadith mentioned, Imam Bukhari mentioning a part of the hadith, خير الناس قرني ثم الذين يلونهم ثم الذين يلونهم, that the best of people are following the people who at the time of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Sahaba, ثم الذين يلونهم, and those who come after. And then I'll finish with this last thing. And then inshallah, I was hoping to start at least the name of Allah Ta'ala, but inshallah we'll start tomorrow. The last thing I'll mention is من قلت عبد الله بن مسعود رضي الله عنه said, إن كان مستنا فليستنى بمن قد مات، فإن الحي لا تؤمن عليه الفتنة. أولئك أصحاب محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم كانوا أفضل هذه الأمة وبرها قلوبا وأعمقها علما وأقلها تكلفا، اختارهم الله لصحبة نبيه ولإقامة دينه، فاعرفوا لهم فضلهم واتبعوهم على آثارهم وتمسكوا بما
استطعتم من أخلاقهم وسيرهم فإنهم كانوا على الهدي المستقيم. He said, من كان مستنا فليستنى بمن قد مات. If you have to follow someone, then follow those who have passed away. فإن الحي لا تؤمن عليه. Because anyone who's living, he has no guarantee that he's not going to fall into it. SubhanAllah, this is so deep. أولئك أصحاب محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. So he's not just saying just follow anybody who died. He's going to explain to you who are these. These are the companions of Nabi صلى الله عليه وسلم. كانوا أفضل هذه الأمة. They were the best of this nation. أبرها قلوبا. The most righteous of heart. أعمقها علما. They were the most deep in knowledge. They had تفقه. What me and you learn today, it will never equate to the فقاهة والصحابي عليه رضوان الله. وأقلها تكلفا. They didn't have all these takallufat, they were easy going. And this is something we also have to inculcate within our lives. That having takalluf is not from what a believer is like. The Sahaba Ridwanullah ta'ala alayhim ajma'in were easy going with one another. The Ansar and Muhajirun came, they welcomed them, they're like, how can I help you? And that's the sifa that we need to inculcate within ourselves. We need to become easy going as Muslims. And when you become easy going, your approach to life will also change. Allah chose them. This is very important. People say, oh, I wish I was alive at the time of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. How do you know you'd have been Abu Jahl? You wouldn't have been Abu Jahl. People think, oh, I was Umar radiallahu anhu. No, Allah chose Umar radiallahu anhu. It's not me and you who choose who we are. Allah chose us for this time. And Allah is not going to ask you on the day of judgment, oh, why did you come at this time and not that time? Well, He is going to ask you. إن أول ما يحاسب به العبد يوم القيامة من عمله صلاته وغير الصلاة. Instead of worrying about being at this time or that time, focus about what you're going to be asked. Allah chose the Sahaba Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim ajma'in to be the companions of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And this is what gives them more reverence and more honor because they were chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is something that we should honor them because Allah, our God, are the one who we worship, chose them to be His Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam's companion. اختارهم الله لصحبة نبيه ولإقامة دينه and to establish the religion. فَعَرِفُوا لَهُمْ فَضْلَهُم. So know their virtue. And this is inshallah what we'll be doing. Obviously it's impossible to cover in 10 days the virtues of all the Sahaba. So we specifically chose the Ashara Mubashara, those who were specifically granted, explicitly granted Bashara, glad tidings of Jannah in the hadith I'll mention later. So, but inshallah we hope that we'll also be following under this, we're slowly learning the fadila of the Sahaba Ridwanullahi ta'ala ajma'in. واتبعوهم على آثارهم and following their ways وتمسكوا بما استطعتم من أخلاقهم وسيرهم and hold on. Tamassuk is like really holding on. It's not just like, oh, like, it's like just fake holding on. It's like, no, really follow their ways. Really follow their life. Really see how they live their lives. فإنهم كانوا على الهدي المستقيم. For verily they were upon the correct path. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose them to be the companions of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He raises us among the Sahaba, among Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He grants us His shafa'ah. He grants me ikhlas. He grants you ikhlas. And He raises us among the Siddiqeen, the Shuhada, the Salihin. وَحَسُنَ أُولَٰئِكَ رَفِيقًا. Inshallah we'll conclude with a short dua. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا ونبينا وشفيعنا وسندنا ومولانا محمد. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا ونبينا وسندنا ومولانا محمد عبدك ورسولك وعلى صحابة رضوان الله تعالى عليهم أجمعين. اللهم انصر من نصر دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم واجعلنا منهم واخذل كل من خذل دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعلنا منهم. اللهم انصر الاسلام والمسلمين. اللهم انصر المسلمين في جميع انحاء العالم يا ذا الجلال والاكرام. اللهم انصر اخواننا واخواتنا في غزه يا ذا الجلال والاكرام وفي السودان وفي سوريا وفي كشمير وفي بورما وفي سائر انحاء العالم يا ذا الجلال والاكرام. فإنك تعلم ما ظلموا يا ذا الجلال والإكرام فانصرهم. اللهم كن معهم عونا ومعينا ناصرا ونصيرا ظاهرا ومؤيدا وظهيرا. اللهم كن معهم ولا تكن عليهم. اللهم اجعلنا من أصحابك. اللهم اجعلنا من الذين يتبعون سنة نبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وسنة أصحابه رضوان الله تعالى عليهم أجمعين. اللهم ارزقنا حبك وحب من يحبك وحب عمل الذي يقربنا حبك. اللهم اجعلنا من المتقين المخلصين المخلصين العالمين العاملين. اللهم احفظنا من جميع الفتن ما ظهر منها وما بطن. وصل اللهم تعالى على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين.